Good morning, folks. It's the Sunday class with Dan and Lee. What a happy day. The weather's beautiful here in Florida, and we're ready and willing to go. Hi, Miss Lee. How are you?
Okay.
Oh, what's on the agenda today?
I don't know. The wind
I
is
am
coming
so
from the north.
excited that we took a week off, and I am so refreshed, and so many wonderful things happened this week to teach people to live for the Lord, and I'm not going to go into details.
Oh, no.
But
Because it took a whole week to get it done.
It was such a wonderful week, but I still want you all to keep praying for us at Prius. We haven't got there yet. But we see, now here, I want to put this in here, because a Prius, we need about $3,000 to $5,000, and this will take us from a 5-mile radius of being able to minister to about a 500-mile radius. And we need that tool. We really do. So pray for that.
It's not a luxury car.
It's not a luxury. We're not talking about a new one. But one of the problems is I kept hearing all this stuff about the battery, and it'd go out and it'd cost you $5,000. And I finally found out how to get a battery replaced for $500. So that is just a repair on a car.
And
it's zero. It means no gas. That's
much,
one of the reasons. And I test drove one this week, and it was just great.
Because the zombie, i.e. our car,
the zombie is leaking.
It has a voracious appetite.
Yeah, I hate to say this, but it's peeing everywhere we go.
Leaking.
Leaking. Okay, I got to use the right language here on this show. Leaking. That's right. Anyway, here we go, Miss Lee. Today we're back to the Life Crisis Stereo. We talked about the Lord has a place for us, and you know what? He has a place for us to minister, and it is good to expand that. And we've gone all over the world, and then we backed up, and it comes and goes. And we really got 10 good years of ministry left in us, I think, because we're 70, and maybe till 80s. I think when I'm 80, my voice may slow down, but right now it's not.
I doubt it.
It may not. I may be able. That's where I was thinking about trying to get a job to make this money to get a Prius.
And so we ask you to pray about that too.
So one of the things, what can I do? Well, I could be a receptionist. I sit there and talk to people all day.
Okay, let's get on.
That's my gift, Lee.
I know it is.
And it drives you crazy, doesn't it?
It does sometimes.
Not always?
Not always.
Oh, okay.
Just sometimes. Okay, we're continuing on with John 14, 1 through 16, and 33. And we're talking about Jesus' great farewell discourse.
Okay, they're in the upper room. We're going through, this is the history. Jesus has just spent 4 years training and discipling and reaching out. And, it's very important in ministry. Not all of it is discipleship. I have friends that are totally committed to discipleship. Well, there's evangelism. And there's also citizenship. Jesus was a good citizen. Now, how was Jesus a good citizen? Where was Jesus a good citizen, Miss Lee?
Oh, I'm on another track.
I know you are. I could see it, but I want to stay here for
Where was he a good citizen?
Yeah.
Okay, let me see. This is probably a trick question. He's always asking me trick questions.
His mama was involved.
Bethlehem. Jerusalem?
Okay. How was he in Bethlehem?
Well, he was born, so...
No, he didn't...
I don't know what you mean then.
Where was he a good citizen? It was his first miracle.
Oh, the wedding at Cana?
Yeah,
right?
See, his mom came to him and said, well, you need to do something to help the party.
Yeah.
See, you need to be a citizen within this culture. And so Jesus did. He made water into wine. And it was the best wine.
I was going to say, not just...
That's where he wasn't just getting people to know about the Father in heaven. Uh-huh. He was being a citizen within the cultural situation of social interactions of the wedding feast. This is citizenship. And this is what Christians many times forget. Because we're really good at being ambassadors and witnesses and disciplers. Those are all spiritual words.
Okay, that brings me back to what I was going to say. Isn't part of this teaching someone how to cook when they ask?
Absolutely, yeah. See,
I've
so
been
you were
with the
you were
neighbor.
being a citizen this week.
Yeah.
Because you have a neighbor that wants to learn how to cook effectively with small
Fruitfully
quantities
and frugally.
and tastefully and frugally, and being fruitful and frugal at the same time. So Lee has a chance to do that this week, and it's given us a lot of opportunities. So that's where Jesus was being a good citizen.
It's not always.
He didn't say, "Mom, I'm busy. I got to go witness." He didn't do that.
It's not always sitting a bunch of people down in front of you and going, "Now I'm going to teach you the Bible.
I'm going to disciple you.
I'm going to disciple you. So
you need to submit
Yeah.
to my teachings."
Yeah.
No, that's not
Sometimes
what Jesus didn't even do that. He even served.
you bring them along beside and you say,
come along with me.
Now we mix
Come
this way.
Yeah.
And we add this spice to make it more flavorful. That's what it is sometimes.
And that's why a couple weeks ago,
It's
we
life.
did the thing about the washing of the feet. Because he was a citizen in his discipleship. He wasn't lording it over and saying, "You need to submit to me." He was saying, "Come along, I'm going to serve you as we go along together." That is discipleship. It isn't putting you under me. It is, we will work together.
Putting your arm around.
Because I need others to be learning to be disciples too. We're all learning to be disciples. Some of us have maturity, some of us don't. Sometimes I have maturity, sometimes I don't. Miss Lee always reminds me when I don't have maturity.
Yes, I do. I try to keep you on the straight and narrow.
That's her gift in life. I think that's what a wife is.
All right, let's go on with
But
this.
you know what? That's what a wife is for. Because see, a wife loves you. I'm talking about a good wife. A wife loves you, and she can tell you how to do better. Even though sometimes you don't say it the right way, and I don't say being a husband the right way. Nobody says it perfectly, but we're alongside each other, and that's why we're helping each other always.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So here we are in the upper room discourse, and Jesus is going to go into some more information of how to live.
Philip said to him, now give us a little, if you can, background on Philip. Do you know anything off the top of your head? I can't remember. I'm blank right now.
I'm shaking my head. I don't have anything on top of my head.
Well,
Philip was one of the
disciples. What?
Lee, you asked me a question I haven't studied recently. I can't remember.
I'm trying to think was Philip Peter's
brother? Philip. Okay. He was the guy that went down to Ethiopia later and led the Ethiopian eunuch to the Lord, and then he was translated away.
Well, Philip was?
He baptized a guy and then he disappeared. Yeah, that was Philip. That was Philip.
Philip disappeared?
Yeah.
Philip was taken up?
Not to heaven, but he was taken away from the Ethiopian.
Oh, okay. All right. So you do remember some things.
Well, you caught me way off guard.
I know. I was just thinking, who is Philip? I can't remember who Philip is.
I wasn't thinking about who Philip was.
I know.
But later in the book of Acts, we see him again.
Okay. All right. Philip said to him, meaning Jesus, "Lord, show us the Father, and we are satisfied."
Yeah.
Jesus said to him, "Have I been so long with you all, and you, Philip, have not known me?"
Now, this is a passage that is somewhat difficult for some people. And before we get into it too much, this is where substance dualism is very important, that humanity is made of two substances. And many people will
Dualism is two things, so what are those two things?
Well, many people like to say body, soul, and spirit. That's three.
Mm-hmm.
But the soul and the spirit are invisible. And that's, you have an invisible part and you have a visible part. The visible part is the material part of us. Now, what is material on us?
Our skin.
Oh, wow, skin. That's a good one.
It holds it all in.
It holds it all in. And there's a
Usually.
good song. Can you sing the song about skin? No? Okay.
I don't sing in public.
That's a good song.
It is. Skin holds it all in. I remember there was a song about that. It's a funny song. And the invisible?
No, visible. More visible
more
stuff.
visible?
What's visible stuff?
Well, our clothes.
Well, think about eyeballs.
Eyeballs.
They're visible, but they're a connector to the invisible.
Well, actually, yeah.
See, in other words, you wouldn't see, when you see, it's your soul is seeing.
That is true.
You're seeing it in your soul. In other words, if your body and soul were separated, you'd still have the memory of that sight because you'd still remember things. So that's something that is connector.
Oh, you know what? You know what is a great example of this, I believe, is the Great Divorce, when they're in heaven.
Oh, yes.
Isn't
one
that a
of
great
my
divorce?
favorite books that I really tried not to read because it was one of the hardest
It
books
was
to
hard.
read.
It took us both
And
so long to read
I'm
together.
not even sure I understand it still.
We need to read it again.
But I get the concept of it, and the concept was very powerful.
Yeah, dual substance.
C.S. Lewis.
C.S. Lewis.
The Great
If you
Divorce.
get a chance to read it,
really,
The Great Divorce.
But you got to get through to about 2/3 through before you'll get it.
Yes.
It's just you're just lost
Yeah.
for 2/3
I
of the book.
think it's like reading Dante's Inferno.
It may be, yeah.
You know, where
be.
you have to get through all this stuff to
Yeah,
understand.
yeah.
But
It's one of those.
But The Great Divorce.
And
is
if Lee and I had not read that
wonderful.
together, I would have never finished.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah.
And
was,
I don't think Lee would have
hard.
finished it either.
It was hard. I didn't understand.
We
some
were
things.
discussing. We want to keep going
Yeah,
on this
we did.
because
We
it
pushed
clicked
through.
like 2/3 of the way through.
Yeah, I was thinking like the last page finally. Oh,
I get it.
now I understand.
But
Maybe
anyway,
just read it from back
what
and
did you
forth.
get? This is so important.
Well, the dual substance is that you see people, and I remember the woman the most, the woman that came in that was a godly woman. That
Oh, we're talking about in the
Great
Divorce.
Divorce.
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about? Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I'm
Oh,
trying.
okay.
You just go off and
she comes
see. You go
in,
into visible things that aren't visible, and I don't know where you're going.
Okay, and she comes walking in, and she has all these people following her, and these animals.
She has lots of social.
Lots, and you know.
I'd forgotten that part. The animals loved her.
Animals
The people
loved
her.
The people loved her, and she's talking to this man that was her husband.
Yeah.
But the man is being held on a chain by a jester, which is a clown
a demon.
of
It's a demon.
you know, making fool of.
It's
A
a
jester
demon.
makes a
Makes
fool
a
of
fool
things.
of you. Yeah.
And she's trying to tell this man, who through the book is getting smaller and smaller, and the jester is getting bigger and bigger. And she's trying to tell this man that, you know, he needs to repent. That, you know, I mean, she
because he's
greatly
moving away from
loves
God.
him.
Because he coming to God gives you all these friends and all these animals and all these things.
Yeah.
And we've seen that.
Joy
right?
and
By
friendship.
do
and
we
love
have a lot
and-
of money? No.
No.
Do we have a really good car? No.
No.
Do we have a great,
Great
beautiful
house?
mansion?
No.
No. But we have beautiful things.
Yeah.
Because we have a wonderful life.
Yeah.
And it isn't that we love life, it's we love the Lord. And He gives us those things pressed down, shaken up, and overflowing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we see our lives. Yeah.
And the man could not understand, and he just kept saying, he kept using his, what do we call it? The free won't.
His free won't.
I won't believe in
I
what
won't
God says.
believe in what God says.
And he keeps
And every time he
shrinking,
says that, he shrinks.
some more and more.
And he goes shrinks. and
Now,
he
what
shrinks.
that has to do with dual substance,
That's his soul, and they're in what kind of like a purgatory. To explain that,
Yeah.
their spirits are there, but their bodies aren't.
Yeah.
So she brings all these spirits of all these people and all these animals and so forth and so on, and his spirit
He's on a chain. Just
is on a
shrinking.
chain. His spirit is on a
Shrinking,
chain
shrinking. Worse than a dog.
that is mocking him.
Yeah.
Now another
Yeah, that
a
was it
movie
too.
that is so interesting that's very like this, and people ought to see this movie. And it's hard to get through the first four because the first 4 episodes of this series, you don't get it. But it's called Hell on Wheels, and there is one of the episodes in Hell on Wheels where the guy is chained to this bad guy, and the
Oh
bad
yeah, that's towards the end.
and the
yeah,
bad
yeah.
guy keeps mocking him and mocking
I
him.
know.
You don't want to take me in. You just kill me now. You're a murderer. You're a bad guy. And he just keeps accusing him.
And he's hurt too. He's shot,
hurt. And
he's dragging this
you got
guy.
to see the episode, and he has him chained to him because the guy's escaped before, and he's had so much time interacting.
And this guy
is so
being
evil.
dragged is super. He's like the devil incarnate.
Oh, it's like it's just in this series, and that's why you need to see the whole series. But it's the same concept of evil change you, and it wants to drag you.
Well, I think the thing is too that the good guy, and well, you don't know he's a good guy, but he is a good guy.
The good guy. We'll just say that
he's dragging this this evil incarnate, he's dragging him to the justice seat.
To the justice, that's right.
And it's like this guy is just condemning him and mocking
and in a
him
sense,
and saying, you're not good enough.
You're not
just
good enough to
me.
take me.
Why are you
just
taking
kill me? You're a murderer.
You're a murderer. You're a sinner anyway.
Yeah.
Just get rid of me.
Yeah.
No, the good guy wants to take him to the judgment.
Because he had a history of not doing that.
Yeah.
The good guy had a history just killing people.
Yeah.
And he kind of repented of that, and he's trying to go and do the right thing, and it's very difficult. Well, that's kind of like in the Great Divorce. This husband this gesture has him chained, and the more he says no to God and God's laws and God's principles, he shrinks.
Right.
He shrinks. And finally, he shrinks so much he cannot be seen anymore.
Yeah. He totally
it's
disappears.
So sad.
And it's kind of like when you have relationships with people, in your everyday world. You try to convince, you try to educate, you try to bring them along with you because you love them, people that you know, your family members, but they say no to God.
Yeah.
And so
they shrink.
They're shrinking.
They're shrinking.
They're shrinking.
Yeah, they're shrinking.
And you see,
well, now that brings us to Jesus.
And you look behind you.
Yeah.
And your friends that love the Lord
are you.
Growing, and they're with
they're
you,
walking
and they're
with you.
You.
And see, that principle is there. Now, Jesus is talking about this here in this passage because he's talking, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. Now, they see Jesus, and he isn't the Father. So how does that work? Is he contradicting himself? No, because we have two substances. We have the material part of us, which is matter and energy, and that's where God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, they prepared a body for Jesus. Okay, and he was born of a virgin, and he wasn't born of another man. He was born of, and he's a new man. He's a new creation. And this whole concept of substance dualism is very important to understand actually the resurrection, to understand the new man that we are. But Jesus here is saying, I've been with you so long and you don't see this? Well, the problem is it's very hard for people to see things as dual substance.
Yeah, it is.
And because they just see,
it's hard to understand.
Actually, who was it that had that song, A Material Girl?
Oh, I think
we live in a material world.
Madonna,
I think it is.
On it,
but see, songs actually reflect a lot of what's going on in people's souls.
Yeah.
And that song reflects how most people think. They think as the world as material, as cause and effect only, versus the supernatural that God controls. Excuse me.
You're sneezing and I'm sniffing and I'm thinking, oh man.
Well, one of the nice things about Florida is it's warm, and it also brings everything to bloom, and it means you get sinus issues.
And the oak trees, which we are surrounded by, are in full yuckiness.
Okay, let's go on and read.
Okay, so Jesus says to him, Philip, you don't know me? He who has seen me has seen the Father. So how can you say, show us the Father? Do you not believe that I am in the Father and that the Father is in me? The words which I am speaking to you all, I am not speaking for myself, but the Father who is dwelling in me. He performs the works.
Okay, now this is a very important concept. Because another time Jesus said, the things I do, the Father does through me. I do nothing of myself. Now, unless you understand this substance dualism, Jesus just formed a miracle.
Can we say substance dualism is the things that you can see and touch?
Yeah, okay.
And then the things that you can't see.
Okay, and in the invisible world, there's power. There's authority. See, for instance, think about it. Well, we were talking about you see through the eyeball, you smell through the nose, you taste through the mouth. But it's you tasting. You're the invisible that is tasting. You're the invisible that is smelling. And you skin, you touch, you feel things. But it's you that's feeling. And see, unless you understand that, and this is what, and just to kind of one of my pet peeves, this is why psychology isn't a science. It's a materialistic approach to humanity. In other words, they believe in matter only. It's all. So they come to these absurd concepts that have killed people.
But you are not your brain.
But see what happens. They they come to bad conclusions because they don't have a good view of humanity. And a great one is ADD. How does that work? Because they just believe that kids are just matter, and they don't have souls, so therefore they don't have the need to have their soul trained. And what is part of the soul that has to be trained in a child? What is it that has to be trained? Self-control. Now that is also needs to be empowered. The Holy Spirit gives us power for that. But see, what you're doing is you're training a child. And there's two things that Lee and I have learned over the years that affect the development of self-control in a child. Now, do you remember what they are? Lee's sitting there going, ah!
I don't know.
Oh, it's her thing she loves.
Food?
Food.
Yeah.
Using food to train their taste buds. Because you can, and there's a wonderful book, French Kids Eat Everything. So you
it's an excellent book if you have a chance to read it. You train them but also you have to let them express themselves through having their free time. And that's a recent study just came out and showed kids need recess. You see, training isn't just drudgery. Like another wonderful song that I love, I think it's one of the great songs of history, Another Brick in the Wall. Mm-hmm. Teachers, leave those kids alone. See, that is talking about the teacher who just stands over you with a club. Because in the cartoon, there's a teacher that has a big club. I had a teacher like that when I was in elementary
you don't want to learn.
School.
You don't want to learn.
And she had a ruler in her hand. This was back in the days when teachers could about kill you and get away with it.
Yeah.
And if you didn't sit the right way or give the right answer, she'd come and smack you on the knuckles with that ruler.
Well, I've been hit by a lot of teachers. But it comes also to the person who's a discipler. Now, disciplers don't hit you, but they want to control you. They want you to submit to their authority. Well, they don't have any authority. They only have...
Well, who has the authority?
Jesus.
Oh, that's right.
And see, they only have truth that they can share. And they come alongside. It's kind of like a friend. See, Jesus said, I'm your friend. Mm-hmm. I'm your papa. It's the good daddy that comes alongside of you and talks to you and points over there at the truth. Well, that's what discipleship is. And that's why we don't have to have the word, you got to be accountable to me to be a disciple. No, that is not what it says. I have to be faithful to the Lord. Mm-hmm. And if you're not faithful to the Lord as my friend, to be my friend, to come alongside of me, then you're not somebody I want to hang out with. And that's why it's interesting in the book, The Great Divorce, because the woman who had served the Lord had all these friends, both of animal world and of the plant world. Not a plant world, but of the human world. So
that's an interesting book, yeah. All right, so we go on saying, the words which I am speaking to you all, I am not speaking for myself, but the Father who is dwelling in me. He performs the works. Believe me that I am in the Father, and that the Father is in me. But if not, believe me because of the works themselves.
So the works are things of history. So history becomes
He's
very
done
important.
4 years they've been walking around
so
with
they
him,
have a
he's
history.
done all these things.
See, he's saying, look at the history of our experiences together.
Okay, did I calm the seas? Did I make wine from water? Did I multiply the fish and loaves? Did I heal this man? Did I cast out demons? These are things you've seen me do.
But this is why history, see here Jesus saying history is real important.
Mm-hmm.
Because it shows what I've done. History of creation, history of the flood, all of these, history of the Tower of Babel, history of the building of nations.
That's what we're doing.
So history is very important. Okay? So some people may believe just because of the history.
Yeah.
And
well,
that's
and
okay.
What he's saying.
He says that's okay. But he says, haven't I been with you? But it's better to get to know God.
Yeah.
And the way you get to know God is not by your emotions, because God is telling us that what's the more sure revelation is every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. Jesus is the Word. Words are invisible. Do you realize words are invisible? And that's why Lee doesn't like, Lee's kind of a materialist. She doesn't like speaking. She doesn't like just to talk about things. She wants it written down. See, now that's interesting because that when you write something down, it takes it from the invisible. A word that you speak is kind of invisible. It's kind of halfway because you can kind of see it if you have the right technology in the material world and you can hear it, but it's an invisible thing. A word is an invisible thing, just like Jesus is an invisible person. God is an invisible person. But see, we are and this is very important. And it's not wrong that Lee likes words written down, because that's what we're here for. We take the invisible, that's believers, and we make it visible. That's why when Lee teaches our neighbors to cook the way God would cook, which is fruitfully and frugally, it's God.
Well, not necessarily that he'd make tacos, but he might.
Oh, I think God would make tacos really good. You know, he made fish really good.
That's true.
You know, and that was their thing. But I mean, it's like all of these. We love these cooking shows, and this one we're watching right now is funny. You want to tell about it a little bit?
Oh, yeah, if you get a chance to see it, if you like baking at all or cooking shows, it's the Great British Baking Show. And they do 3 parts in each show, and they're eliminated as they go on. They do
There's about
some
12
signature
people.
dish, which is
Don't go into too much detail.
They start out with 13. Baker's dozen.
You're getting way too 13 people.
And they go down, they bake things every week.
You're getting too much detail, and they're bakers.
They're bakers, amateur bakers.
And what's so funny
bakers.
is British cooking show. I mean, I'm going. They're not known as great cooks, fish and chips.
Yeah.
But what they're really good at
is baking.
Yeah. And that's why they do this. And it's a very important concept because here's the gift that God has given them, and they can make these amazing cakes and crumpets and cookies. And see, because
lemon tarts.
That's important to them because they have tea, and there's where they have always the baking going.
Right.
And then in their meals they have bread, and the breads are what are really they take the time with.
Yeah.
And they have pies that are meat pies and sweet pies. They call them savory or sweet.
Yeah.
And that's what they're good at. And see that every culture has things it's good at. That's why it's very diverse, and God allows them to do this. But to see how their culture comes through this is just so.
I know it is.
It's so British.
Entertaining.
It's so
entertaining.
British, and it's so fun to watch.
Yeah.
Okay, but anyway, back to but see, their invisible soul is coming through. Mm-hmm. The British soul is different than the African soul, and different than the Italian soul.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean one is the best. It means they all have gifts and they bring it together. And that's what God said. God is Jesus and Father, the Son, and Holy Spirit are all of these things in multiples. But it's the invisible that makes the visible really worth hanging out with. So that's very important. And Jesus dealt with that here in the upper room. Very key. Any more things we need to say today, Lee?
No, I think that's...
Okay, well, this has been our Sunday class, and you can go to our Sunday class at oursundayclass.simplesite.com and sign up for the newsletter. And we haven't been doing it for a little while, but we're going to get that rolling again here soon. And you can also hear it at theroddenreporter.com because we're developing this wonderful concept that allows people to get so they can overcome this fake news that's out there. And I can't tell you how much I get to witness to people because I talk about the news events. D.L. Moody did this. He preached. I think Spurgeon did it too. He says the way to talk is using the newspaper as the basis of teaching. So those are all very good things. So we'll talk to you next week. Class is over. Go to oursundayclass.simplesite.com or theroddenreporter.com.